Please join me in welcoming Alex Aiken.
Fiona, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I like the Churchill quote, but I'd also commend, and I'm reminded of it as I was holidaying in North Wales and South Wales this summer. We went to see the Lloyd George Museum in North Wales near Carnarvon. And one of Lloyd George's famous sayings, and there are many from a war to end all wars, but one I like is, if you're going to jump a chasm, it's best not to try to do it in two goes. And what we are trying to do with government communications is drive up the standard of government communications through changes that might appear, 11 changes that might appear quite ordinary as on their own, but together I think will deliver a radical transformation in the standard and standing of government communications. I believe government communications is quite simple, really. It's about A, B, C. A is for audience, and we don't always, in government comms, focus as clearly as we should do on the audiences that we serve, the people of Wales, the businesses of Wales, the community groups, and so on. And I want you to go from this conference today and be absolutely clear that your masters are not the permanent secretaries or the chief executives or the ministers or the council leaders, but they're the audiences we serve. And you must act as the conscience of the organisation to the ministers and the chief executives and councillors, say, actually, the audience, because now more than ever the audience is king and is influential and co-create what we do. We've got to build our communications around audiences. Second, brevity. I bring you a memo from the Prime Minister. Dear Secretary of State, I'm once more drawing the attention of all departments to the importance of brevity in official minutes, memoranda, letters and telegrams. I hope that special consideration will be given to the shortening of Foreign Office telegrams, and he goes on. Now, the Prime Minister in question was actually Winston Churchill in 1940, talking about the need for government to deliver more brevity. So brevity, B, is the second of my ABC. C, conversation, and we are, if we accept that audiences are now in command and are actually far more trusting of what their friends and family and what you say in your private lives and necessarily the material that comes out from government, then we absolutely need to be absolutely clear that we're having a proper conversation and engaging our audiences. Where's Dan from Caerphilly? Morning, Dan. Thanks for the tweet and the picture. Well done. That's conversation in practice. So, you know, that is the starting point for my communications. My vision of government communications is that we are exceptional digital campaigners nudging people to live better lives. Exceptional digital campaigners nudging people to live better lives. That's easy as the headline, but I want to unpack some of that over the next 10 minutes. Right. We're going to change government communications across the UK for the better. And I hope that Wales, in the way that Iona and Victoria and CommsCymru have led the development and the professional standing of Welsh communicators, will continue apace. In terms of the challenge for government communications, I want to talk a little bit about the history, the management challenge and the professional challenge. Quote another Prime Minister from 1985 in a memo to colleagues. She urged Cabinet colleagues to make the fullest use of all the resources of the Government Information Service, ensure that information is an integral part of policy making and that the Chief Information Officer is fully in the picture at all times and is consulted when policy is formulated. That was Margaret Thatcher in 1985. And there have been 6 reviews of government communications since 1979. This is the 7th. And the historic challenge for me is about when are we going to get something to stick that drives up standards at a reasonable cost? Because, you know, the money, as the former Chief Secretary of the Treasury famously said, has run out. How do we drive it up efficiently to deliver this step change, to jump the chasm in one go? Second, there's a managerial challenge. I'm offering you an invitation to join the Government Communications Service, to be part of the new professional band of brothers and sisters who are going to improve people's lives, because government communications should be about how we deliver health services that save lives, that we deliver social services that improve lives, that we deliver economic communications that encourage people to start businesses, to invest and so on and so forth. So as public communicators, your job is to improve lives. It is not about the issue of press releases or internal comms material on its own. But in order to convince you of that, we need to collaborate. I can tell you what my plan is. I hope that in a social network world you will believe that, endorse it and move as part of it. But I am aware that I need to convince you that it's the right course of action rather than just say it's how it's going to be. We have a professional challenge as well. I got a memo from the current Foreign Secretary, William Hague, former Secretary of State for Wales, recently, and he said, thank you for the review you did of Foreign Office communications. It was really, really useful. These are the things we are going to do as a result of it. Now, we have gone round all the main Whitehall departments, and next year we're going to start on the major ALBs. I hope the DVLA will be one of the first bodies where we conduct a peer review, what we term a capability review, of the strategic, operational and training calibre of the organisations concerned. But having done this round Whitehall, we have discovered that central government departments are operationally very good. People work hard, but they are strategically challenged. The evaluation, the planning, the challenge back to ministers and officials, the links with policy are lacking. You know, what is the point of working hard if we don't step back and say, why are we doing this? How are we improving lives? How are we going to measure success and prove our worth? So that is the professional challenge, because I strongly suspect if the Foreign Office, the Treasury, the Cabinet Office, DEC, DCLG and all the other initials that live on Whitehall and Victoria Street, SW1, are challenged in that way, I suspect that that will be true of your organisations. And anyone who wants, anyone who's brave enough to say, yeah, we'll take a capability review, we'll accept some independent reviewers to kick the ties and make recommendations, we will come and do it for you. Because if it's good enough for the Foreign Office, the Rolls-Royce machine, where we made 50 separate recommendations, they say, this, because we're a confident, brave organisation, this is useful, this will help make us better, then I think that is a model for others. So this is your opportunity. I invite you to join the Government Communications Service. There are 11 things that we are doing as part of these reforms to deliver this engaged, campaigning, digital communications service. I'll group them in three things. First, we are going to professionalise the service. The GCSN in itself is part of that. The core communications competencies, which can be used by local authorities and health and fire and police bodies, as well as central government. The talent management scheme that we are going to introduce, we are going to identify the best potential communicators from across the land and make sure they have the right training, development and experiences to move to, you know, in time, my role, director of comms roles, whatever they want to do, will be part of that professionalisation. There'll be core and mandatory courses on digital skills and evaluation. Now, this is a point of discussion. I had a note from a director of comms last week who said, look, this point about compulsory digital comms, I'm not sure my press officers need to actually understand digital. You decide. You decide whether it's necessary. I think it is, but that's a professional debate. You know, so all this professionalisation, what is in it for you? Why should it matter to you? Because we are going to move to a single standard of government communicator where you will be better equipped, better skilled and interchangeable, and you can move into different organisations and they will accept you, and although this is at the moment true, will become true soon of central government and the major ALBs, I want to move this around the whole of public service communications so it's a better career path. We will pool resources. We will bring in certain specialist areas services together as centres of excellence. So that applies to design, it applies to digital, it applies to marketing. In practice, the central government hub for design will probably be run by the Ministry of Justice, because they have a brilliant design team. I have a couple of designers at the Cabinet Office, but actually I'd be better transferring them to the Ministry of Justice and running it there. Digital comms operation may well be run by DFID, and if you have time to go on the DFID site and look at the brilliant digital comms they do about our work overseas, that is a lesson in itself. Campaigning, you know, we all have small campaign teams, but we have world-beating campaigners at the Department of Health who have pioneered the Change for Life campaigns, the Start for Life campaigns. Has anyone stopped smoking during October? Well done, Stoptober. If you can stop smoking for 28 days in succession, the evidence shows that you're likely to stop for good, which is about government communicators improving lives. So we're going to have centres of excellence, which doesn't mean we are going to aggregate and centralise everything. We do mean to say they are the lead people to talk to. And this is where, when occasionally I hear, well, are you recreating the COI? No. We're using the best practice in the best departments and saying that is the people that you go to, that is the people you should use, sometimes contract with, sometimes just learn from. Third, planning. It just amazes me that we do not consider this time of the year and say, right, business year is about halfway through, hopefully you're all having your half-year performance assessments and so on. You've got a training and development plan in place. If not, you should have. And if not, you need to say to your managers, why haven't I? And say that, I asked. But, this time of the year, we start saying, right, what are the communication objectives? What are the awareness we want amongst our audiences? What is the understanding we want from our audiences? What is the behaviour change we want our audiences to make in the business year 2014-15? You need to have that conversation now. You need to talk and challenge the chief execs and the permanent secretaries and so on and say, right, what do you want comms to achieve? You're spending 100,000, 500,000, £1 million on communications in the next business year. How do we fit in with the organisation's business plan? And this is the difference, as some of you have heard me say, from rosy communications, where the research is done, the objectives set, strategy, implementation, evaluation, as opposed to SOS communications, sending out stuff. If you do not plan and think through what are the objectives you want from your communications, you will not succeed. And when people say to me, well, how do we increase the standing and respect for communications? It's partly because you get into the chief executive's office and say, right, what do you want us to achieve? And how does it link with your business plan? It's not that difficult. This is the Home Office communication strategy of 2013-15, because we're going to roll out in November a new business planning model that you can share, and it was actually built by the DWP, which shows how you can accomplish managerially what I've just set out. But Home Office have decided to do it quicker. And if you do it at Home Office, we've got some fairly tough issues, then you should be doing it most places. What I like about this as a comm strategy is it passes the Ronseal test. It's absolutely clear they're going to do what it says in the tin or in the book. They're going to promote growth, cut crime, reduce immigration and prevent terrorism. Communication objectives in line with the departmental objectives. And there's plenty of evidence in there. And then they say, how are we going to do this? Now this is the clever bit, because how are we going to do? Are we going to send out some press releases and we'll do some stuff and something will work, something will turn up. They say no. We are going to innovate digitally, we are going to streamline and collaborate, and we're going to measure effectiveness and efficiency. It is not rocket science, but perhaps why 6 other reforms of government communications have not worked is that we have just not applied a sort of Germanic, Teutonic rigour to the practice of communications. Some of you have heard me say before, I'm a great fan of Germans, I'm less of a fan of sort of Spanish and Italian creativity. If you think you're creative, I'm not sure we have a place for you in the new government communications service. We do, right? We do. But I need you to up your digital skills. Do tell me when to shut up.